Now, into the ticket office of Disneyland.
Oh boy, let's do this. Don't think the CIA is going to be trying to hack your second-gen iPod.
I didn't think so. There might have been a lot of illegal music on there. I wouldn't doubt it. But, I mean...
You were supposed to bring death to the flagships, not join them.
Google has found a new way to piss me off.
iTunes is a constant source of embarrassment.
Behind-the-scenes camera crap.
May I present to you the cat?
I am the dog. Well, I can't do it anymore without laughing. I was going to do the whole thing. Welcome, everyone, to the Calling All Platforms podcast. I am your host, Wes, and I am here today with Caleb.
Yay. It's me.
No Landon today. I have custody. I technically had custody last week, but yeah, wasn't too much news. We wanted to...
Yeah.
There's some things that were unfolding at the time.
Right.
And so we decided that today would be a better day to talk about it because then we'd have more details, more things.
Developing
more answers.
situations. Yes. That's
So
the way to put it.
That's what we went with. So, well, gosh, let's go ahead and let's get into this. So first thing on the docket here, we're going to talk about some Apple news. Apple, apparently the Vision Pro has launched.
Yep. That is a
and
thing that happened.
We've got some things to say about that.
Oh my gosh, listener. Okay. So, Apple released a VR headset. It's called the Apple Vision Pro. They are trying very hard to get people to not call it a VR headset or an AR headset or mixed reality or anything like that. But one of the things I really appreciate about, say, Marquez Brownlee is his very first video on this subject after he had gotten a review sample from Apple was to basically, like, in the very beginning of his video, he's all like, Apple probably upset for me saying this, but this is a VR headset. And I'm like, yes, I like this guy. Telling it like it is. So, just before the headset launched on February 2nd, a little bit over a week ago, or a week and a half ago, there were a few people that were sent headsets early, right? Prior to this, the only time anybody had ever interacted with a VR head or with the Apple Vision Pro outside of developers who had strict NDAs saying that they could not talk about their experience with the headset, was in the presence of Apple marketing people, right? And that was the only time people got to interact with it. All of their experiences were very carefully monitored and tailored and stuff like that. But just before February 2nd, an embargo lifted and a whole slew of people who were given early access to headsets, where basically they were given the review samples early, were able to release content about the Vision Pro. Yes. And then the Vision Pro launched on February 2nd, and a lot more content started coming out from the people who are actually receiving the headsets that they had paid $3,500 for. Yes. Okay? There's a general consensus that is actually just about there's the thing. Hold on. Back way off. Listener, you probably, statistically speaking, you have an iPhone. Okay? If you live in the United States, it's something like 60% of all phones sold in the United States over the past 3 years are iPhones. And, okay, that's fine. They finally got market share stuff. So that means most people have used an Apple device. They have an iPhone, or they've used an iPhone, or they've used an iPad, whatever it is. They've used an Apple Watch or something like that. Somebody handed them an iPhone to make a phone call or look at Instagram or something like that. So many people are familiar with Apple. But, listener, you may not be familiar with the Apple fan base. Okay? Because Apple has a lot of customers who are not their fans. even if they don't actively dislike Apple, even if you were to ask them like, hey, do you like Apple? And they'd be like, oh yeah, I like Apple, because they're thinking of their phone and they've had a decently good experience with it. But if you start talking to them, they could find stuff to complain about. But no, there is a small, tiny percentage of Apple's consumers who are rabid fanboys, right? They live inside of something we like to call the Apple reality distortion field. Okay. Apple supports and maintains this reality distortion field by their marketing department, and these people buy into it hook, line, and sinker. Those folks are convinced that the Vision Pro is the second coming of Jesus Christ himself. Somehow. It's not a person, but it's the savior of mankind. Somehow. So these people are really, really, really rabid about this being the best VR headset ever. And sorry, not a VR headset. You can't compare VR headsets to this thing, because what this is a spatial computer, and it completely changes everything about the industry.
Oh, jeez.
Nothing is like this. Nothing can compare. It's awesome and stuff like that. And if you go to forums on websites like Mac Rumors or something like that, you are going to find those people, right? There's not that many of them, all things considered. Besides them, the vast majority of people who have actually had hands-on time with the Vision Pro are all pretty much in agreement over a couple of things. First, that the Vision Pro is undoubtedly one of the most perfect VR headsets that has been made to date, and it honestly probably justifies the $3,500 price point in terms of the quality of the headset and the experience that you're getting versus everything else on the market. Not to say that people should actually pay that amount of money for this headset. They're basically just saying like it's kind of unmatched in a lot of ways and is probably worth that amount of money, but you probably shouldn't buy one anyways. The second thing that pretty much everybody is in agreement on is that this is not what Apple wanted to launch. This device is a compromise from Apple to get a head start on their augmented reality app ecosystem. Like, they want real world data from actual use cases, people actually using augmented reality devices. They want to have a developer base in existence for a super integrated augmented reality experience. And the only way they can do that is by actually launching an augmented reality product. But unfortunately, the technology to make the augmented reality product they want doesn't exist yet. We're just not there. Okay? The Vision Pro is a fantastic VR headset, but it is not what they wanted to launch. What they wanted to launch was a pair of glasses that were the same shape and size as normal glasses, that have see-through lenses so you can like interact with the world around you just like normal, but also have the ability to overlay screens and whatnot onto the world around you so that you can use it like the way that the Vision Pro sort of does with cameras and pass-through. But instead of having to deal with pass-through and all the limitations that are involved there, it's just glasses. That's what Apple wanted to launch. Pretty much everybody agrees. And I think that, there was a comment that I read that I think sums it up pretty well, saying that like, this is about the best that I can imagine a VR headset being, in terms of its pass-through latency and the quality of the cameras and the visual quality of the screens and stuff like that. And it's just not working the way that Apple wants it to, which isn't necessarily saying anything about Apple. It's more just saying that if you want a really, really high quality augmented reality product, this form factor doesn't work. It just doesn't. Basically, Apple did the best that it could be done and it still doesn't work. Therefore, everybody should give up and stop trying on this. We need to just VR headsets are for blocking out the world. They're not augmented reality devices. Just stop trying. We need to work on a completely different line of thinking in order to get real augmented reality stuff. So that's the general consensus of pretty much everybody that I have seen online. The reviewers, tech reviewers, people on forums that have the thing in hand that actually paid $3,500 for it. You have one class of people who are really, honestly, pretty darn okay with having a device that cuts them off from the world around them, a VR headset, and they love Apple's execution of it, and they're like, I'm okay that I spent $3,500 on this. I'm going to keep using it. And then you have the people that are all like, I was really hoping for a perfect augmented reality experience, and I am really happy I paid $3,500 to know that that's not what this is, and I'm going to return it. Like, basically, everybody's impressed with the headset. But a lot of people are like, but that's just not quite what Apple wanted, is it? So.
Interesting.
So, all that being said, there's a few things, like, we'll hit the high points of, like, the talking points everybody's really saying about the Vision Pro. First of all is the build quality. It's Apple. The build quality is really, really good. The materials feel really nice. Everything's put together very well, very precisely and stuff like that. One of the things that contributes to an extremely high cost, not necessarily surprising. It's heavy, yes, but not overly heavy. Apple seems to have done a pretty good job of keeping the weight close to the face so it doesn't like pull your head forward or anything like that, which is good. One of the things that is adding a significant amount of weight to it versus something like the Meta Quest 3, which is primarily made out of plastic, is the fact that the front of the thing is glass, because they have a little screen on the front that's supposed to display your eyes, and we'll get to that in a minute. But that glass adds a lot of weight. Turns out Jerry Rig Everything was one of the people who bought a $3,500 Apple Vision Pro, and it's Jerry Rig Everything. He broke it. That's what he does.
Did he?
Of course, he tore the thing to pieces, and he started by putting the little piece of tape on the front screen, or on the front glass, so that he could to get his Mohs hardness picks out and scratch it, find out just how hard this glass is. Turns out, it scratched at a 2 with deeper grooves at a 3. So it's not actually glass, it's plastic. So to be clear, there is glass on the front of this device. So Apple's not lying when they say that it's laminated glass on the front. But laminated glass, listener, is like what's in your car windows, where they have a sheet of glass and then a sheet of plastic. And for the most part with car windows, it's glass, plastic, glass. And the glass is like glued onto the plastic, so that if it shatters, you don't end up with a whole bunch of shards of glass flying all over the place. It sticks to the plastic, right? And that plastic holds it all in place and prevents, rocks from just punching right through your windshield and that sort of thing. Okay? Laminated glass is important. Apple put laminated glass on the front of this thing, which when they announced it, everybody was like, oh, that makes sense. That makes it stronger. It keeps giant shards of glass from flying all over the place if the thing breaks. Turns out they didn't sandwich the laminate layer in between two pieces of glass. They just put it on the outside. So if you scratch this thing with just a pen, it doesn't even have to be like an exceptionally hard thing. You could scratch it with an extra hard, like a 6H pencil. You might be able to put grooves into this thing because the laminate plastic layer is on the outside. So other than that, build quality seems to be excellent.
Well, geez.
Yeah. So that's fun. Pass-through, right? So the quality of the pass-through on this, pretty much everybody agrees it's the best that anyone's ever seen. The latency between what the cameras record on the outside of the headset and what they pass through to your eyes is really low. It's like 14 milliseconds or something like that. It's not perfect, obviously, because perfect is no latency,
Yeah.
It's just
None.
your eyes working. So obviously not perfect, but pretty darn good. And for a lot of people, honestly, going to be absolutely fine. If you're extremely prone to motion sickness, then you might have issues with it. But if you are prone to motion sickness, it does sound like this is the headset to try, because Apple's got a whole dedicated pipeline just to reducing latency for the visual input. And it seems like they're doing it way better than pretty much anybody else. So pass-through is very good, but it's pass-through through an opaque VR headset. It's still a VR headset. Right? It's still pass-through. It's still not your eyes. Like, the cameras are recording at not perfect visual resolution. The screens are displaying at, something like, so I think, what was it? Marquez Brownlee just actually released a video where he called this out. 93% of the DCI P3 color space, which is pretty good. Reference monitors, like Apple's own Pro Display XDR, those have 98-99% coverage of the DCI P3 color space, which is good. But the DCI P3 color space itself only covers about half of the colors that most people can actually see.
Oh.
So it's really good for a display, but it's not really good for the human eye. So, there's definitely limitations to this thing just because of the technology we have available right now, but it's better than everything else. Now, spatial computing. That's what Apple wants you to call this thing, is a spatial computer. And one of the things that makes that feel real is the ability to kind of to take windows, like program windows and stuff like that, and dock them in the air around you. Feels like, just from the video that I've seen, it looks very much like something out of an Iron Man movie. Actually, the first Avengers, there's that moment when Bruce Banner and Tony Stark are in the helicarrier working on a tracking algorithm for finding the Tesseract using gamma scanners and stuff like that. I remember the plot of this movie surprisingly well. I haven't watched it in quite some time, but that's all right there in my head.
Yep.
Kind of makes you wonder what I've forgotten so that I can retain that sort of thing. Anywho, they have the computer screen, the virtual computer displays floating in the air ahead of them, and they're kind of throwing them around and swiping them and dismissing and minimizing them with gestures and that sort of thing. That's what the Vision Pro enables. Granted, it only enables it for you with the headset on, but it looks pretty cool, and it looks like they stay in space, where you put them. They don't drift around or kind of move or anything like that. I've got a MetaQuest 2, and that thing has some floating window UI elements in it and stuff like that when you're using it. And when you move your head around, they kind of drift a little bit. It's, it's not that great, but the Vision Pro, you put a window someplace, it stays locked there. The big limitation there, like I said, being that you're the only one that can see it. It looks super cool to you, but it'd be kind of cool if everybody else could also see that. I don't know.
Saw this. This is funny. Someone had, I think it was a girlfriend or a wife, had recorded where her husband's windows were, where he's put them, and so she put it on and started recording so you could see her vision. Well, apparently there's a big one right in front of the toilet. So she goes and sits down on the toilet. You watch her go. She sits down, and it shows Facebook feed. But then it has this button that says "Press me for mountains." Well, you push it, and it closes everything, and it just shows up in the Appalachian Mountains everywhere. So when you look left and right, he's pooping in the mountains.
He's just, there you go.
So I was like,
getting back
that might
into
be worth
nature.
$3,500.
Poop where you want.
I don't, but you see all these windows in the bathroom or anything, but she was
man.
kind of going through. But I thought it was pretty funny.
Oh yeah, no, that's hilarious. I love that.
But it does. It looks
you
like
can poop
that.
on the moon.
Yeah. So I laughed at that a little bit. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I mean, let's be real. It's cool technology. I can't be mad at that.
It is. Well, and it speaks to the quality of the pass through that you can just walk into the bathroom with this thing and take a dump and it's not a problem. You can see with it that well. Like,
Yeah.
you know, there's multiple like videos of people wearing this thing in pass-through mode and like playing ping pong and catch and stuff like that. Like,
Oh, geez.
again, I've got a VR headset that has pass-through in giant air quotes. Now, to be clear, the Quest 2 and the Quest 3, very, very different in terms of how they handle pass-through.
Yeah.
The Quest 2 has black and white cameras that record in like, I don't know, 180p or something like that. It's such low resolution video. You can't see jack. Like, it's useful only for making sure there's not like a table right in front of you when you're setting up your secure area, like play area. That's all that you use that thing for. It's all it's good for. So like, yeah, very different. But that thing is such low, that pass through is such low latency and so grainy and blurry and awful that, yeah, if I had that on and somebody threw a stuffed animal at me, I would just get hit by a stuffed animal. Like, I wouldn't have a prayer of catching it. So yeah, Vision Pro's pass-through is very impressive. The spatial computing, also very impressive.
Yeah.
Lots of impressive things happening there. Absolutely best of that we have seen out of any of this stuff. To the point, in fact, where I did see a video. In fact, me and Wes talked about this like a week ago of a dude. This is hilarious to me because this is a person who is like the quintessential tech early adopter, right? Yep. I don't know, listener, if you've seen the comics of like or the Reddit posts where it's all like, you know, a tech enthusiast is someone who's like, oh yeah, I've automated everything in my house. Like my thermostat talks to me and my windows like roll themselves up and open and close and stuff like that. And I've got like all of my doors send notifications to Google and all this, that kind of thing. And then you have like tech developers who are all like, the most sophisticated piece of technology that I have in my house is a printer from 1980, and I keep a loaded shotgun next to it just in case it gets mouthy, right? Like, the people who know and understand the tech don't trust it. But then you have this group of early adopters who have so much faith in their technology that it is honestly baffling and scary. And that's what this was. It's a video from somebody else in a different vehicle taking a video as they pull up alongside a Tesla Cybertruck, because those are brand new and like you don't see them very often. So they're filming a Cybertruck. And as they pull up next to the Cybertruck, it becomes clear that this thing is driving in autopilot mode, because the driver's hands are not only not on the wheels, they're just kind of flailing around in the air in front of him. And as you pull up level with them, you see why. It's because they're controlling the interface for Apple Vision Pro, which is on their face. The truck is driving itself, and they're, quote-unquote, monitoring the driving through the pass-through of a VR headset. This is the dumbest thing that I have ever... Oh, here's my favorite part. We didn't talk about this, Wes. I did watch the video. They drive past an intersection I've driven through before. This happened in Lehi, Utah.
It was?
It was. Traverse Mountain in Lehi, Utah, between Highland and Lehi, on that highway that goes right through there. I have fully driven through that intersection before. I saw the sign in the background. I'm like, wait. And I went out to Google Maps and I'm all like looking and I'm like, it's right there. Oh. So yeah, that was some idiot in Utah down in the quote unquote Silicon Slopes part of the state where all the tech bros are. So I'm not surprised, but
wow. I didn't realize that.
So there's a lot of positive, good things about the quality of what Apple has done with Vision Pro, and it inspires really, really misplaced confidence in some people. So let's talk about some of the missteps that Apple has made. They're not all bad, but like there's some problems. The first, app support. It's fine. Apple has a bunch of apps in the App Store, but they're mostly just iPad apps that you can kind of float in the air in front of your face. Like basically just imagine you had a really big iPad sitting in the air in front of you. There it is.
So like Facebook app,
okay.
Just put it here,
right?
Whatever.
Exactly.
Okay.
So nothing all that special. The killer experiences mostly seem to be limited to things like, viewing photos and video, theater mode type stuff,
pooping in the mountains. Come on,
pooping in the mountains, and weirdly FaceTime, I guess, is pretty cool, despite the fact that the computer generated avatars that Apple has are kind of, well, they live in the uncanny valley. They are the uncanny valley. They're just deep in the crevices there. Super uncanny looking, but I guess, what else were we expecting?
Right.
So, it's early days for a brand new platform. This isn't unexpected. And I will say that over the past week and a half, there have been a lot of, like, on social media, a ton of concepts for, Vision Pro experiences that look really cool. And they're just concept videos right now, but the vast majority of them seem totally plausible. So we may very well see a lot more stuff coming in the near future. Okay, the next thing, the screens. So, first of all, the screens themselves are, the pixel density on these things is over 3,300 pixels per inch, which is like over 10 times the pixel density of an iPhone. Like, these things are insane and have, by all accounts, virtually no pixel density. Wait, no pixel density. That's not that's the wrong word. Screen door effect. The pixel density is so high that there's virtually no screen door effect. You can't see the pixels, right? And that is really important for making VR feel real. So, like, that's working. These micro OLED displays that Apple has got for these things, super incredible, cutting edge technology. There's some downsides. The lenses are not perfect. You have to go through lenses. Not really any other way to do this sort of thing. And in order for these lenses to work, they have to be designed in a certain way. It's called a pancake lens. And they have internal glare, like inside of the lenses themselves. The screens don't get super bright, which on the one hand means that the internal glare on the lenses, while it is still present and you still see some color fringing around the outside of the lenses, isn't as bad as it has been in some other headsets. Notably, I think like the Valve Index and the PSVR 2 are the two that people talk about. But on those two, the displays are significantly brighter, which means that HDR actually feels more HDR-esque. Like with the Apple Vision Pro, they're not bright enough. Like if you look at the sun, it doesn't feel like you're looking at the sun.
Yeah.
Which, like, on the one hand, you don't want your headset to blind you if you, like an idiot, pointed at the sun. But it needs to feel bright, right? Otherwise, it doesn't feel real. So that's, again, not necessarily a problem with Apple. These displays are very, very nice. It's a limitation of the technology we have available today. The next thing, the bands. So Apple designed their single loop band thing. That's the one you see in all the promotional marketing material. And they spent a lot of time and a lot of money in this band. Everyone is like, every time they touch it, they're like, oh, this feels so good. Like, it apparently feels super premium. It's really soft. It's very, like, supportive, and the adjustment mechanism is like super natural and intuitive, and all of these great positive things about it. Doesn't provide the best support, because in order for it to work, it's the headset just clamping onto the front of your face as hard as possible to stay up, right? It's just friction fitted onto your face. That's how the single loop band works. And so Apple did include in the box a second band called the dual loop band that is a more traditional headset style. That has a band that goes around the back of your head and the one that goes over the top of your head that helps support the vertical without it having to be so tight front to back. I've actually heard mixed commentary about which one is more comfortable, but the general consensus is it doesn't really matter that the battery only lasts for 2 to 3 hours because you're not going to want to have it on your face for longer than that. And that's, in my personal experience, pretty typical for VR headsets. Just in general, after a couple of hours, they get uncomfy. You want to take it off for, 20, 30 minutes before you start using it again. That's okay. It's a limitation again of just like the fact that these are basically full computers that you're strapping onto the front of your head. It's, again, limitation of the technology. It's just not quite where Apple really wanted it to be. And they spent a lot of money trying to design a band that wouldn't screw up your hair, but would still allow you to use the headset. And seems like they got pretty close.
Yeah.
But it's just not,
That's good.
just not quite there. The other thing that people have noted as just generally being not super great is the field of view. Apple doesn't actually quote field of view numbers for the Vision Pro, and people have speculated that is because it's significantly worse than like the Meta Quest 3 or the Meta Quest Pro or the PSVR 2 or the Valve Index, stuff like that. They're estimating maybe 90 degrees field of view for it, if that, possibly even lower. So, there is another detail to that. Apple is doing something called foveated rendering with the display, the image on the display. So the Vision Pro has an extremely sophisticated array of radar cameras on the inside of the headset pointed at your eyes that do eye tracking, right? And this super advanced eye tracking is one of the reasons that Apple is able to get away without having controllers, which is positive. You can just use your hands, and that's really cool. Also kind of negative if you wanted to like try playing any games. So there is that, but so the foveated rendering is basically Apple knows exactly which direction your eyes are pointed at all times. And so they're only rendering clearly the stuff that you're looking directly at. And everything around it is kind of blurry. And you can actually see this if you record the display. There's a couple of different display record options where you can record what the headset is doing. And one of those retains the foveated rendering, and you can see the blurriness around the edges of the image, but the center, like where the person was looking, or it's not even the center all the time, because if like they move their eyes up to one corner or something like that, then that corner becomes clear and everything else gets blurry. It's really interesting. And let's be honest, that's kind of how the human eye works. You don't see clearly all this stuff out on your peripheral vision. It's all slightly blurry.
Right.
You just, are aware of it, kind of thing. So they're doing that to reduce the weight of the rendering for anything that you're looking at, reduces the rendering pipeline, because everything that you're seeing is generated video, and that obviously takes quite a bit of compute resources. But between that and the fact that the comfort pad thing, whatever Apple's calling it, I can't remember, the little pad that sits up against your eyes kind of enables a ski goggle effect that is a little bit stronger than you might get in something like the Meta Quest 3. So that's not great. It's not terrible. People have said, yeah, you can pretty easily get used to it, but field of view is probably the one thing where the Vision Pro isn't just objectively better than every other headset on the market. Now, last but not least, final feature I want to talk about of the Vision Pro is the eyes. Okay, so we talked about that display that was embedded under the front glass on the front of the headset that's to enable the people around you to see your eyes when the headset is in pass-through mode. Right? The idea being that when they're talking to you, they can make eye contact. It's awful. It looks so bad, right? Like, so this display sits behind a lenticular lens, which is actually the type of lens that they put in TVs and stuff like that in order to, like, it's useful for a lot of different things, but Apple is using it to try and make it look like the eyes are set back from the front of the display by about 1 inch to 2 inches, so that they look like they're actually on your face, so that it looks like they're looking at you through ski goggles, right? because that's kind of what this is. It's like ski goggles on your face. That's what Apple is shooting for. What they got instead is like really bad CGI from about the first Men in Black era. It just looks like alien eyes stapled onto the front of a person's head. It looks terrible. And okay, look.
Yeah.
This should be, it's a brand new product category for Apple. They were trying to do a lot of new and interesting things with it, and I'm not upset about any of that. This particular feature probably should have been killed in the prototype stage, especially because it adds a lot of complexity and a lot of cost to the headset itself. But Apple really didn't want to launch a VR headset. They wanted to launch glasses. And so they had to do this. I see where that comes from. But now that they've got it out into the wild, I hope that they're going to look at this and be like, yep, so that was a first generation fail. Let's just cut this feature from all future headsets and make them cost $500 less. That would be great. But they've already given it a marketing name. They're calling it Eyesight because of course they are, which means it's sticking around. And gosh dang it, I hate that. It's such a stupid. This is the one thing that I'm like, yep, Apple, you failed right here. This was, I know why you did it, but you shouldn't have done it. And please stop. But they won't. I know Apple. It'll be back for Generation 2 in like 3 years, but it shouldn't. It shouldn't. Just don't. Nobody needs, just make the glasses, right? It's a VR headset. We'll accept that it's a VR headset. The pass-through is really great. The spatial computing and augmented reality stuff is really well done for the limitations that we currently have with the technology we currently have. And that's fine. We're all okay with that, Apple. But just take the eyes off the front of the next one, please.
Please. I didn't realize it was that bad. I didn't really look at
so
with it.
like,
I might have to look at video or something.
The honest truth is the display, the outward-facing display is so dim that it's virtually impossible to see the eyes basically any time. But when you can see them, it just looks awful. It looks so bad.
I'll have to look at some videos on that.
Yeah, it's great. So yes, that's the Vision Pro. It is a $3,500 tech demo for what Apple wants to do with augmented reality headsets in the future, but is heavily limited by the current state of the technology that is forcing them into a VR headset instead of an augmented reality headset. This is not what Apple wanted to release, but it's kind of where they have to start in order to eventually get to where they want to go.
Right.
And that's how you can think about this. We have Vision Pro Gen 1. We'll probably see a Vision Pro Gen 2 and a Vision Non-Pro at the same time in about 3, maybe 4 years, when the technology has advanced sufficiently for Apple to feel like it's worth making another one. And personally, I suspect that that's the last time we see Apple make a VR headset, because after that, they're going to start trying to pack all of this functionality into a pair of an actual augmented reality glasses. And I think that what this says is that if Apple couldn't do that now, all of the people who are trying to pack augmented reality features into a pair of glasses should stop. Like, I'm sorry, if Apple couldn't do it, your little startup isn't going to pull it off. They all look ridiculous. They don't work very well at all, any of them.
Yeah.
Just, holy crap. Just stop. Go make a VR headset instead. You've got a much better chance there.
It'll be better.
Yeah. So, there you go. Vision Pro launched, and that's, unless something crazy happens, I don't think we're going to have much else to say about the thing over the next few years, probably.
I mean, we're going to get a lot of funny videos of people watching people use them.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
My favorite one, though, is The Simpsons predicted it. One. Did you see that one yet?
I didn't see that, but it's one of those, like, that's what The Simpsons do.
Oh, dude, I laughed when I saw that. I was like, of course they did.
Yep.
They just took a picture of a guy with the outside, with it, and then they cut to a Simpsons show that showed everyone outside which looks a lot like the headset on the Simpsons. So I was just like, dang.
Yep. I mean, to be fair, like Apple started off their very first ad for the Vision Pro, or not even ad, it was in the announcement video. The very beginning of the announcement video for the Vision Pro steals a scene from near the beginning of Ready Player One. Like the moment when they first show the dude entering the Oasis and the way he puts on the headset and that whole transition and all that stuff, that is exactly the shot that they used for the very beginning of the Vision Pro announcement video. I was like, so it's a VR headset then.
Yeah, it's a VR headset. That's funny.
Is what that is. Oh, good stuff.
Well, I think that's everything we have here for Apple, unless you got anything else you want to add to it.
Oh, no, that's plenty.
Okay. Well, Microsoft, guess what? More AI stuff. Yep.
Yeah.
They're just implementing AI everywhere. It's it. So, we don't have any Google or kind of general tech. We're going to skip over into some gaming because there's a lot. And I feel like we got some comments. We got some things we're going to talk about here. Let's go ahead. We're already talking about Microsoft. The thing I put on here is Microsoft's handling of gaming so far. ... I should have put so far this year. Is what I should have put.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, okay. So, the very beginning, they had not a state of play. What was it called? A developer update. Developer show. They showed the new Indiana Jones, but a couple other games that been working on, but obviously the big one that everyone wanted to see was Indiana Jones, right?
Yep.
Very, very cool, very good looking. Well, lots of speculation with that was, well, is this actually going to be for Xbox? Just Xbox alone, exclusive? Because they didn't say. They haven't said. They haven't said that for the past couple under the Bethesda umbrella. So like Blade and all these things. So there's a lot of speculation with that. But we're gonna put a pin on that speculation. We'll talk about that. The first thing I want to talk about was actually the thing that came after this little event. Layoffs.
Yeah.
Which everyone, I'm going to assume everyone's heard this. Like if you're not even in gaming, you just know Microsoft laid off
bunch of people.
1,200 people.
Something like that. Yeah, I think it was about 1,200. And
that was mainly in their gaming sector.
Yes.
There were a couple other layoffs here and there and there other stuff, but this was specifically gaming and obviously Activision Blizzard.
Yes. And that's kind of the thing is that like Microsoft saying, okay, the Xbox division is laying off a bunch of people is one thing, but Microsoft saying, okay, the Xbox division is laying off a bunch of people. Oh, and by the way, like 2/3 of those people are from this company that we just bought. It's wait, hold on.
Yes. Now, so the next bullet point of this layoffs is obviously the FTC does not like this.
No.
So
the FTC is still upset about the merger going through at all.
Right. So we'll just cut. This is a quick point I wanted to say because this is big. Obviously, so a lot of this Microsoft news is getting blown up out of proportion on a lot of this news. Like, whether you're a part of gaming, whether you're part of any technology right now, Microsoft is just under this. People are getting clicks, and this is how they're going to do it. Just talk about Microsoft. So guess what? We're going to talk about it, but more along the lines of this is what's actually happening real quick. So the layoffs happened. The FTC doesn't like the layoffs, so they want to investigate this. Well, Microsoft did come back and say, hey, just so you know, these layoffs were going to happen before we bought them. Independently, Activision was going to do this.
Yeah.
With all of this. And they do have paperwork with it. I guess they didn't give it to it. I don't know. They said, hey, we have documentation here we can give you, just so you know. So I don't know how far this FTC looking into this will go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the FTC is still looking into the feasibility of bringing in a lawsuit that will force Activision Blizzard to split back off from Microsoft. Like,
right.
That's the FTC is still in that. And then these layoffs happen. They're like, you were supposed to not change the company for a specific period of time after you bought them. And Microsoft is like, we swear they were planning on doing this already. We changed nothing. In fact, us laying off these people is part of us not changing their plans.
Right. This is literally them changing. So I'm glad you said that. That's actually what that's what I was getting. The point I was getting to is this is actually the plans that were going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at all of like tech and mainly gaming, everybody's been doing layoffs.
Yeah, it's been pretty endemic.
Now, obviously, this is huge for Microsoft. Like, the number is just huge, okay? Like, that's why it's getting the clicks. That's just what it is.
I mean, this is nowhere near the level of the giant post-COVID layoffs that we had at the beginning of last year with, Meta and Microsoft and Intel and, like, a whole bunch of these big Google, companies that were dumping, like, in total, it was like 20 or 30,000 like industry jobs were lost or at this time last year. It's not to that level, but for a single round of layoffs, especially since it was pretty much entirely limited to their Xbox division, this is just a lot. And it's not landing at a super great time for Microsoft to be doing this. And the fact that it also involves Activision Blizzard, who they just purchased.
Yes.
It's not a great look. I sympathize because it's entirely possible that, yes, in fact, Activision Blizzard is planning to lay off like 700 people already. And Microsoft is just like, okay, whatever, I guess, go ahead. Like that may be what happened. And in that case, I mean, no harm, no foul to Microsoft, I suppose, but that doesn't mean I'm super happy about Activision Blizzard having planned to do that in the first place, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much behind the scenes that we just don't know.
Yeah.
You know, so that's just our comments on that. And I guess I wanted to bring up another point that actually threw me by surprise on one of the layoffs was actually Mr. Mike Ybarra from Blizzard. I didn't see that coming, like, at all. Now, the way that this was shown is he said he stepped down.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Typically when an executive leaves a company like that, that's not layoffs. They're not usually fired. They are either resigning or they're being forced to resign by the board.
Yeah.
Could be either of those, but technically a resignation.
Yeah. So that one I just didn't see coming. Now, something interesting is they have found a replacement for Mike. It was actually one of, I have in here, it was the general manager of Call of Duty, Johanna Ferris. She actually becomes president of Blizzard, which okay. Now, no offense, okay, not to her. Like what I'm not sure about is we're trying to un-Activision Blizzard.
So we're going to put an Activision exec in charge of Blizzard.
An Activision exec over. So that.
Now, to be clear, general manager of Call of Duty is not like top level management, like capable of running the company into the ground the way that it was before. That falls squarely on the laps of like higher level managers and primarily Bobby Kotick. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And so, don't want to blame all of Call of Duty's issues on her because she was the general manager of Call of Duty. But fact of the matter is that she was the general manager of Call of Duty, and Call of Duty has got a lot of issues.
Yeah.
So that's not a place of great trust that she is coming from. Let's be fair.
And I guess with the stance, I would say my stance, and I would assume Caleb as well. We're just old school Blizzard fans. And
Blizzard is such a listen. Blizzard and I have not been getting along for quite some time.
It's been a while. Yeah.
And I don't even necessarily say I would consider myself like an old school fan of Blizzard because like there's a lot of new stuff Blizzard has done that I am totally a fan of, right? Like there are people that are like, no, StarCraft 1 forever. And I'm like, yeah, but StarCraft 2 is sick. Like,
yeah, StarCraft 2
played that. And then, everybody is all like, no, Diablo 2 for life. And I'm like, I love Diablo 2, but Diablo 3 was also really fun. Like, just saying. and that kind of thing. Like I'm not gonna like just crap all over Blizzard now because I like their old stuff better. And one of my favorite Blizzard games is Overwatch 1, to be clear. Not 2. 1.
You have to be clear on this.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
because I said, I have not been getting along with Blizzard for a while. So it feels like Blizzard was already thoroughly Activisioned back, years ago. And like I haven't seen nor heard sign of the Blizzard that I really, really loved. The Blizzard that like 10 years ago, I booted up the battle chest of Diablo 2 onto a Windows 10 PC. And it was just like, hey, I got to download some updates. And then it just worked. Connected to Battle.net and everything. Like, that Blizzard is kind of gone. Like, I'm actually pretty sure that there are some people of that Blizzard still like hiding in the background, maintaining servers that enable that kind of thing, because I don't think that Blizzard, like corporate, like the executives want that stuff to be happening still, but I think it is still for a lot of those older games.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, real love-hate relationship here. I'm kind of two minds about this. Like I said, I don't want to blame this woman for Call of Duty being what it is. And prior to being the general manager of Call of Duty, she came from like the Call of Duty esports space. And that's, I mean, it's a very different style of like, it's not a creative management arena, right? Like, you're not being super creative in Call of Duty esports. You're being organized. You're being pragmatic, and these are good qualities for an executive to have. Maybe it's the kind of thing where she wasn't making any positive waves as the general manager of Call of Duty because she doesn't have a creative background or something like that. And that's what Call of Duty needed, was some creativity from from on high. And she wasn't capable of doing that. But moving from there to being like the president of Blizzard, that might be fine because she's not going to really be involved in day-to-day creative decisions for any of Blizzard's properties. That's not what the president of a company like that does. She's instead going to be setting the tone of like, how do we monetize our games? How does this happen? And that sort of thing. And I have no idea what her stance on that sort of thing is. So we're just going to have to find out. Like, it's really hard to say. She might be really good for Blizzard. She might not.
Well, I mean, we're going to find out. I mean, there's going to be growing pains with this, obviously, because it's a whole other company merger, finding its groove and under a new umbrella, new management. So we'll see. All right. Moving on to the next subject here. We're going to go ahead and I had pinned up a little thing about video games not being exclusive. We'll unpin that. So we talked about Indiana Jones. We talked about what was the other one we said? Blade.
Yes. Yep.
Blade, Indiana Jones. Well, apparently there was I don't know how someone data mined this, but there were rumors going around saying that a highly anticipated Xbox exclusive was going to go third party to Nintendo Switch as well as PlayStation. People had found that it was that Hi-Fi Rush. They had, I guess they found, was it stickers or something that showed a blue silhouette of one of the characters that says, "I'm finally here," and then one that was red. And so that people were like, oh, associating that with PlayStation and associating with Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, with that, rumors of Starfield going to PlayStation, rumors of all sorts of things. And then people started looking at the website, Xbox's website, and was data mining and looking to see, oh, all these games that are coming out no longer say Game Pass, no longer say Xbox Series X or S. And they actually did the internet where, what was it? Where you can go back in time on the website.
Yeah.
when they
way
used
back.
to say stuff like this.
Yep.
And then they don't, so they changed it. Well, everyone's going nuts apparently.
Yeah.
And when I say everyone, I mean you're an enthusiast. I mean nuts. I mean there's so many. For the record, let's get this straight. I'm curious. One, a discussion topic for Caleb and I to talk about, to get our thoughts out of the way of this. Games going third party. I really don't care. I am on the Xbox ecosystem. I am on it, and I understand. I mean, Halo, okay, Gears of War, things like that. Your signature things, sweet. You can keep them, but like games like say Starfield or the Hi-Fi Rush games, Indiana Jones, like.
Yeah.
I guess I don't see a problem because, in a sense, if it's coming to PC already, that is cross-platform.
Yep.
Let's be real; these consoles are just PCs anyway.
Yep.
Right? Like I understand, but I guess I look at it. I've always hated the problem of whenever I've been on the Xbox ecosystem or something, and I'm like talking to somebody, and I'm like, hey. Let's say Overwatch. Back in the day, I'd be like, oh, we talk about Overwatch. Oh, what do you get a new friend, a new coworker, you talking, like get really excited about playing together, and you find out they're on another thing like PC or PlayStation.
Gosh dang it, that happened all the time the first couple of years of Overwatch.
The time.
It's just like, oh, you play Overwatch, I play Overwatch, I love Overwatch, we should play sometime. What's your tag? And then they're all like, oh yeah, my Xbox gamer. I'm like, fetch.
Yep, exactly.
Gosh,
or PlayStation or whatever it was. I always ran into that, and that was the worst feeling. The worst ever.
Yep.
Right?
Hated that. I hated that. Look, listener, this podcast, it's called Calling All Platforms. This is why we started the podcast.
Right here.
It's because we were sick of this kind of thing.
So now I've talked about me, like in this, like I get a point where, so I guess I look at the other side. Let's look at the other side. I understand that I'm probably never going to play God of War. One, because I'm not going to spend $500 and then another $70 just to play one game. Now, if I spend money for my PC, I would want a decent. No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It is on Steam. Now, this is where I'm getting to. Like, but I will, because I already have a PC. I may get it that way, right?
Yep.
With these exclusives, things like this. Like, I can see this. This is great because now I have an opportunity to play these games.
Yeah. Right?
Yep. I already have a Steam account. I already have accounts. I don't have to create a whole other PlayStation account. I don't have to link things. It's already created. I can just buy it and give Sony the money they want. And I can just play God of War.
Yep.
Right? So, I mean, guys.
And therefore, the PC is the best, it's the best platform. And then
which brings me to the next point. Like that's why I have Caleb. I'm like, I'm really interested to see what a PC player thinks of all this freaking drama. Let's be real. Here you go.
So, listener, if you're not aware of the PC Master Race subreddit, you should go check it out sometime. It's hilarious. So,
man,
that's it's been a really funny thing to primarily play games on computers, but understand that I am not in the quote-unquote PC Master Race crowd, because traditionally the argument for the PC Master Race was that PCs play games better. Yeah. Better frame rate, better visual fidelity, better settings, everything. The PC version is the best version. But, with the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One families, and it honestly started with the PS3 and the Xbox 360, game developers started targeting the consoles over the PC. And for a while there, especially at the beginning of the latest generation of consoles, it felt a little bit like the PC was getting left behind. And it was like, oh man, even the really high-end PCs don't feel that much better than a $500 console from Walmart. And suddenly the PC Master Race didn't feel all that special anymore. But then Microsoft was all like, hey, Game Pass on the PC, and started dumping all of their games onto the PC. And then Sony was all like, yeah, all of these exclusives, we'll put those in Steam. Why not? There's a PC port of Horizon Zero Dawn. Go for it. The Last of Us, you want to play that? Okay, here you go. It's coming out on HBO. Watch the show as well. Right?
Yeah.
And suddenly the PC Master Race was back in full swing, but now I'm part of it, because it doesn't matter what the specs of your PC are. You can have a Steam Deck. It's underpowered as snot, but you can play everything. And that's pretty sick. So, from the perspective of a PC player, I look at we talked about the reality distortion field for Apple. There's one for Xbox as well. But this one is not created or maintained by Microsoft at all. Microsoft does not have an Xbox reality distortion field. The Xbox gamers make that one, completely independent, and there's a few people that live in it, hardcore. They never leave. They're in this world where Xbox is superior, and even the suggestion of Microsoft taking Xbox exclusive games and releasing them on the devil's console, otherwise known as the PlayStation, they're like, oh my gosh, they're going to pitchforks and torches, and they're going to storm Phil Spencer's house and find out that they can't climb fences. But the point is, they're so up in arms about this. And I'm over here in the PC Master Race territory with my mouse and keyboard and my Steam library with access to, heck, just every game. I don't even it's like every third party AAA game is just here, and all the first party games, they're coming as well. It's nuts. And basically the only thing I can't play on my PC at this point is fetching Mario.
Legally, without an emulator, we'll say.
That's true. New Mario games, right? I can't play Super Mario Wonder on my PC, and that's it. There is so little that I can't do from my PC at this point. And I'm sitting here looking at all of this choice, all of these options for stuff, and I cannot fathom why any gamer wouldn't want that. It's just baffling to me that there's a group of people that are all like, no, more segregation between the consoles. I want less options. Don't take my first party exclusives and let Sony players play them, because if you do that, then Sony might start releasing God of War games on Xbox. Don't do that. We can't have that. That's terrible. And I'm just sitting over here what? Are you people stupid? If Microsoft takes all of the Xbox exclusives and releases them on PlayStation, you can sell your Xbox, buy a PS5, play with all of your friends that have had PlayStations this whole time anyways, and still play Gears of War or Halo or whatever, or just switch to PC and have the best of both worlds and play everything get a Steam Deck. It is just baffling to me. Anybody who's all like, no, I want console exclusives. Where yes, like I said, listener, basically the entire point of our podcast, of our YouTube gaming channel and everything is freaking stop it with the exclusives. It sucks.
Right.
They're great games. We are sick and tired of having console exclusives. So
I don't know. If they want the exclusives, I don't mind the exclusives but I think it's the whole trying to hold something away from somebody that bothers me. I want this so you can't. That. I think that's the wrong.
It's the wrong mindset.
The thing. It is. And maybe I'm an old school gamer that grew up with, hey, there's a Nintendo 64 here and we can have 4 controllers. It's much better with friends. Maybe that's...
Yes.
I don't know.
Exactly. Exactly.
I don't know. Like,
every gaming is better with friends. It just is. It's better when you have people, like the more people you can have in there, the better. The more differing viewpoints, the more different experiences you can get, the better. Even if it's a single player game, the more of your friends that are playing the single player game, the more people you can talk to about it, and the better it is. Like, there's nothing about video games that gets better the more locked down and closed off it is.
mm-hmm. And
like,
that doesn't help. Let's be real. That doesn't make money for businesses.
No.
Or for gaming. So you want your sequels to your games. You want these high, like you gotta make money.
Yep.
Oh,
it's
so
like,
yeah,
it worked to make money for Sony for a while, right? Like, you look at the hardware sales for the PlayStation consoles. Sony has has 4 of the top 5 best-selling consoles of all time.
Yep.
And then Nintendo has 1 in that top 5. And the Xbox 360 is the closest that Microsoft gets to that, and it's in the top 10.
Yeah, it is.
But it's kind of down to, it's like 7 or 8 or something like that, and then the rest of the Xboxes aren't even in the top 10. Right? So, like, selling hardware units has in the past worked for Sony. But it seems like Sony is recognizing that that's not a long-term viable plan for them. And so,
I think even Jim Ryan, before he left, said, hey, the console isn't sustainable. Or
yeah.
I can't remember the quote, but he said something like that. Like, they gotta have more. They gotta change. And that's why they're going to PC. They're starting to do things and take those risks. So, and I think overall, now mind you, we had these takes, guys. This is a rumor.
It's true. That's very true.
This is a rumor. Okay,
so the fact that you're getting so worked up over a rumor at all, maybe reevaluate.
This isn't. Turn off Twitter. Turn off your social media for like 2 days. Like, just YouTube, even YouTube. Just turn it off for a second.
Your blood pressure will go down so much.
It will. Like guys, I've had to do it. I know Caleb. You're off some of the platforms. You barely get on it.
I've deleted a few already. Yeah.
Like, just give yourself a moment and then really think about it. Like obviously what we're saying, there's caveats to certain things. So like Caleb said, like, what if Xbox, like, okay, we're done with the hardware, you move over to this, and you've got 100 games that you got in your library. Guys, what are they pushing? Xbox Game Pass.
Yeah.
You're gonna have your game. Like, okay. Anyway, a lot of caveats. Now, Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond and everybody, Matt Booty, they were actually going to have an event later this month, is what was said. But because of all this rage, I mean, that's literally rage and stuff. Phil Spencer actually came out and said, hey, we're going to go ahead and move this meeting. Basically, hey, you'll hear from us next week. They said this last week. We're hearing from them this week. So it is for February 15th. They're going to do a Xbox business update, is what they're going to do, to tell you everything. Like, supposedly everything. Now, what this is so Xbox has a podcast that's called the Xbox Podcast, and that's where they're going to do that. They're going to do an entire episode with all of them there. Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond, Matt Booty, and whoever else they feel, so that everyone can have a certain direction, certain thing, so they can see what's going on.
Okay.
And then, so, and
then we might actually have something to talk about.
Bingo! We have something to talk about that's actually legit, and be like, hey, is this concerning? Is it not? Like, what?
Yeah.
So, I know all that stuff said. Here we go. So, and that's pretty much the gaming news so far. If you like, that's pretty much it, guys. Like, if you heard that some YouTube influencer was like, no, I've got a document that says that, like, let's just wait till the 15th.
Yeah.
Let Phil and Sarah, guys, they just spent $69 billion. They're still fighting the FTC. They're still trying. They have, and with the FTC, they have to make sure all this goes through the legal department because of all this. Like, yes, you want Microsoft to respond now in a tweet, but do you really want them to respond now in a tweet with all this, like, you want things official.
No, you want context.
Like,
you want
it.
more than a tweet.
So let's just give it to them. Like,
yeah.
I mean, they've done nothing but really good stuff. They've changed the landscape of gaming. Like, with this Game Pass, they're pushing, they're innovating. That, like, give it to them. Just let them have it. Otherwise, no competition makes Sony sloppy, guys.
It's true.
And guess what? We'd be paying $100 per game. We'd be paying all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. No, you want these super awesome, great single player experiences from Sony. You need Xbox there making lackluster single player experiences.
You got a point. Like, so
you got to have the competition or nothing happens. Like, you want awesome stuff. You need the occasional Redfall. It just has to exist.
That's what it is. So,
oh man.
So next week we'll be reporting on that, just to kind of give context as much as we can, to kind of be like, hey, this is what's up. What do we see? Go from there. Who knows? Maybe we'll find our Calling All Platforms biggest surprise out of this.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yep. Phil Spencer's giving everyone a free Xbox.
That's because nobody would
calling
buy
it right now.
Oh, dig.
I mean, as long as they're Series X's, I would totally take it. That thing has a 4K Blu-ray player on it.
It's nice. It's pretty cool, actually. Does really good HDR and everything. So, okay, well, I think we're going to be done talking about Xbox and Microsoft side. I mean, I tried to keep all the certain points and nuggets together and contained for us to talk about this. I hope I did okay and you understand. So we're going to move on to the next topic here I wanted to throw in here, which I find interesting.
So stupid.
Caleb.
This is so stupid.
Oh, I knew this would. Two companies Caleb really likes. Okay, Disney has invested. They announced to invest $1.5 billion into Epic Games to create a new gaming universe connected to Fortnite. I'm going to leave that there.
This is yet another instance of, like, people making a popular game and going, oh, but what if we could get people to spend all of their time in here instead of just the time that they have to play video games? This'll work great. Fundamentally misunderstanding how people interact with video games. Like, it didn't work for Minecraft. I don't know why they're expecting it to work for Fortnite. And, like, I'm sorry, Meta bet huge on the concept of being able to get everybody to spend 100% of their time engaged with their social media. And they had to lay off like 12,000 people last year because that failed. Like, what? Why is this different? They're basically just building Disney World inside of Fortnite and expecting that to be a thing that's going to make a bunch of money. And I'm sorry, it'll probably make some money, let's be honest, but it's not just whatever.
Yeah. I wish there was more to it. I mean, basically what they said on here, that this is going to be, and in quotes, a multi-year project building on the company's licensing business model that led to the creation of Marvel's Spider-Man and other blockbuster games with Disney characters. So.
Yeah, but like, Disney Starlight Valley was one of those games, and that's a freaking turd, and nobody likes it or nobody plays it. It's
so
Disney, what are you doing? What are you doing?
I mean, the only thing I think of is they want the microtransactions, you know? I mean, that makes money.
I'm sure that's what they're like, live service microtransactions something. And they're like, we have all these characters we can license. Surely that will work. I'm like, I mean, no. Like, do you understand why Marvel Snap was so wildly successful, Disney? Do you understand it all? Was it because it's Marvel characters that have been licensed out? No. It's because it's a good game. Like, the gameplay is solid. The gameplay loop is engaging. That's why people play it and pay money for microtransactions in it.
Yeah.
It's not because of the licenses, Microsoft. You're not going to win anybody over to Fortnite with Disney characters. You will get the people that are already in Fortnite, and that's it.
Yeah. I'm just not sure. So I think with this, I think they're actually acquiring some of Epic, I believe is what they said.
Yes. Yeah, like a minority share. It was like
Yeah.
a 7% or 10% or something like that.
So, to my knowledge, I thought Sweeney, he owned like 51%, and I could have swore, was it Tencent owned like
Tencent does have
40?
a chunk. No, it wasn't that big.
Not that high?
It's a minority share also, like 20 or less than 20%.
Interesting.
I'm pretty sure. But yeah, like Sweeney maintains a controlling interest in Epic, and he's got either over half or just a simple majority or something like that, which allows him to maintain owner control over the company.
Right.
But he does have a bunch of investors to answer to. Tencent's one of them, and apparently Disney is now one of them. And I don't know why. Like, he complains so much about big companies like Google and Apple, and he makes Disney these partnership deals with the bigger companies like Disney and Tencent, and I'm like, what? I don't like Tim Sweeney. I don't know if that's come across on the podcast, listener, but
I think it has.
Of all of the billionaire CEOs out there, like, I mean, he's no Elon Musk, but he's up there with some of the rest of them, like Bezos and whatnot. I just don't like the dude.
Yeah, so there's that. We'll go ahead and we'll move to the next here. So, PlayStation.
Yes.
Had a state of play.
They did.
I unfortunately didn't catch it, but Caleb.
I'm gonna be honest. I didn't catch it either. Like, I read the news articles afterwards and watched the game trailers on YouTube and whatnot. It was like 45 minutes. They introduced like 10 games. It's fine. They talked about some updates to stuff like that one. What was that? Foam Stars, I think is the name of the game. It's basically Splatoon with Nerf. Or with soap bubbles or something like that. Yeah. They talked about some stuff like that, but there were two games they talked about that I feel like are worth mentioning in the space of like calling all platforms gaming. First of all, Death Stranding 2. Now, Death Stranding, the director's cut, has been made available on just about every platform, up to and including the flippin' iPhone at this point. So, like, that's quite broad disbursement for this game. So Death Stranding 2, you kind of expect to be a similarly large-scale blockbuster experience. And what they have shown us is a little tiny bit of gameplay, mostly just kind of like story introduction, world introduction. And I think the best way that I can sum up the trailer that they released for Death Stranding 2 is like just proof that Hideo Kojima can go weirder. Like, it's just that's pretty much it. Including, oh man, the subtitle for this game, Death Stranding 2, On the Beach. That is the name of the game. On the Beach. So it's a cozy, like Animal Crossing-esque Hawaiian vacation for Norman Reedus from Death Stranding, and that's no, it's weird and crazy and baffling in this exact sort of way that you would expect from Hideo Kojima. And they even teased a little bit of a something that Kojima Studios is working on in the background. No details yet or anything like that, but it's going to be like a spy thriller stealth game. And everyone's like, oh, so Metal Gear. It's going to be a Metal Gear game that is legally distinct from the Metal Gear franchise. And we're all surprised it took you this long to make that, Kojima. So good job for holding out. The second game is called Judas. And it's from, I should have looked this up. What's the name of the studio for this?
Judas?
Yes, because okay, so the developer is Ghost Story Games, and the director of the game and the director of games for that studio Ken Levine, who's a name you may recognize, listener, if you have ever played any game that ends with the word shock. So we've got System Shock 2 is where Ken Levine started with Irrational Games. Publisher changed over Irrational Games, obviously not able to keep the System Shock franchise. And so instead of making a sequel to System Shock 2, Ken Levine made a spiritual successor to System Shock 2. It's called BioShock. You might have heard of it. And, we got BioShock. We got BioShock 2, which was not a Irrational Games game. It was, who made that one? I can't even remember. It was kind of a spin-off as much as it was a sequel to the original BioShock. And then BioShock Infinite. And to be clear, listener, those are landmark games. They're outstanding. The System Shock games were also landmark games. And BioShock Infinite still holds one of the unique distinctions of being a large-scale AAA game that got me so invested with a character and with a method of gameplay that when the end credits started rolling to show me the names of the approximately 14 billion people that helped make this game, I actually sat there and watched through the entire end credits instead of skipping it because I was still just trying to process what the F had just happened. Like, BioShock Infinite was a significant game in my life. So, Judas is a Ken Levine game from the studio that he started after leaving Irrational Games. It, from the gameplay, looks like BioShock. It looks like BioShock. And I'm not going to complain about that because I loved BioShock. So if he basically gives me the gameplay of BioShock with a few creature comfort improvements and then a story that is as engaging as the stories of BioShock and BioShock Infinite, I'm fully on board. Take my money. So those are the two most significant games out of this state of play from Sony.
Fair enough. I didn't see anything, so I can't comment on it. So.
Yeah.
I need to. Okay, we'll go ahead and we'll move on. We'll get out of our gaming news. And guess what, dear listener? We got some Doom news.
Heck yes.
I guess it's not the same without that gun.
It is without the gunshots.
I know.
I left a little pause right there. I'm hopeful, listener, that you did hear a gunshot just now, and Landon has got our back. Now, this one, I'll just be real quick, because I'm not going to get into the details of this, because quite frankly, the details of this is a biology textbook, and I'm not qualified, nor am I interested in going into the details of how this works. But suffice it to say, a grad student working on their doctorate in frickin' immunobiology wrote a paper detailing how they had successfully used electrical signaling to make a petri dish full of E. coli display Doom. Yep. Now, to be clear, it's not you can't play Doom on E. coli. That's not how this works. Because the frame rate of this is about 1 frame per 90 minutes or so. Because that's how long it takes for the E. coli to rearrange and shift in order to display the next frame. But they were able to successfully, using electrical signaling and low voltages, get the E. coli to arrange themselves in a way that was obviously the title screen, the menu screen of Doom. And
wow,
that's freaking stupid. I don't know why you would do that, but it's also kind of the best doctoral thesis I can imagine. I don't know. I don't even care. Freaking give this dude a doctorate of everything. That's.
I mean, that's. Yeah, I would never in my wildest dreams have been like, you know what I want to do for my doctorate.
Amazing. So yeah, it's short. I don't know. I did not read the paper. Didn't read the paper. I didn't read this guy's thesis. So I have no idea how he got this to work, really. Like, let's be honest. But even if I did read his thesis, I still probably wouldn't know. I don't have the educational background to interpret that sort of thing. I just saw the pictures that he had in his paper, and I was like, that's just ridiculous. I don't know why you would do that, but okay. Good work.
Yeah, good for you.
Like, I thought that the tiny OLED display in a Lego brick was pretty impractical as far as ways to look at Doom go, but turns out there is a more impractical way. Good job. You found it. It's bacteria.
Oh, jeez. Yep. That's so awesome. Well,
yeah.
I think comes to our episode comes to an end right there, because we don't have Landon, and he definitely doesn't have one more thing.
No.
So
can't do.
Well, listener, we appreciate you for listening this far, and you can get a hold of us if you want to on our social media platforms, as well as callingallplatforms.com. You can check out any of the videos if you want to check those out over at YouTube, over on our YouTube channel. That hasn't been updated in a minute, but
yeah, it's okay. There's a Playdate video. It's coming, I swear. Promise.
It's coming. It's coming.
Promise.
You can check that out over there on our YouTube channel. All right, dear listener, have a good week.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Calling All Platforms is a production of Supporter Sound Studios. To learn more about how you can support the podcast, go to www.patreon.com/callingallplatforms.